We're live? All right. Well, welcome everyone to our first product webinar of 2025. I am Megan Azadi. I am the Director of CX Design here at Azuga, and I'm joined by Toby Pluak, who is a Product Manager for our asset and equipment tracking solutions at Azuga. So, first and foremost, we're here to talk about Azuga's equipment tracking. So, Toby, what is equipment tracking?
Yeah, hi Megan. So equipment tracking is Azuga's newest product. It's a solution for tracking tools and small equipment using little Bluetooth location beacons. It's super easy to use and it's very cost effective.
And how did Azuga come to build this product?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this product really came about from listening to our customers. Azuga already has excellent solutions for tracking like heavy assets, things like trailers, lifts, skid steers, yellow iron. But a lot of our customers were telling us that they needed a way to track tools and small equipment that are maybe not
Mhm.
valuable enough to justify tracking with GPS asset tracking, but are nonetheless critical to their operations. Customers had tried some other consumer solutions like the Apple AirTag and even some prosumer products like the Milwaukee One Key, but they found that those products have limitations. They're overly dependent on your employees' cell phones to detect the beacons, and they're also missing
Mhm.
something really important: context. We saw an opportunity to develop a commercial grade solution that shows you where your equipment is in context with your vehicles, teams, assets, and job sites. So we did a deep dive on this, Megan. We spent over a year in R&D talking to customers, evaluating hardware features, prototyping and user testing to develop the concept that we have today, which is a powerful, effective, and inexpensive solution that's super easy to use.
So I'm hearing that this is a customer driven solution, that it came from our customers to actually build out this product. I love that. And so when we're talking about equipment tracking, what exactly is this problem solving for our customers?
Yeah, so something we kept hearing over and over again from customers was that they were experiencing operational inefficiency due to misplaced tools and equipment. Teams arriving at a job site, they have a trailer that should have every type of equipment that they need to get the job done, and then they get to the job site and find that the one tool that they need isn't there. They end up having to delay the job or reschedule. When tools are accidentally left behind at job sites, which happens,
Mhm.
often teams don't notice it's missing until several days later when it's really needed. And then at
Mhm.
that point, no one remembers where it was last used, and recovering it can be really tricky.
So, yeah, and it must be really hard to forget something and not be able to complete your job. Because in all reality, you would have to go back. It does sound like it takes a lot of time if you
Yeah, and
forget
it
something,
kind of
and that's
becomes a compounding problem, right? Because I lose one tool from my trailer, but I have a job to do. So I borrow a tool from another trailer, and now
yeah,
that trailer doesn't have the tools that they need. And these are the kinds of things that our customers were seeing. So we developed this solution to make it really easy to keep track of things.
excellent. That's great. So, um, so when we're talking about the types of customers, what kind of businesses are best suited for this particular solution?
Well, we think equipment tracking will be useful in a range of industries, but there were two types of customers who specifically requested this, and we kept hearing from over and over again. And those are restoration businesses and also landscaping businesses. Landscapers are a
Hmm.
good example of businesses that typically have trailers that are meant to be fully outfitted with all the tools and equipment that they might need on a job
Hmm.
site. And then when equipment gets left behind, it delays jobs. Like I said, they
Hmm.
borrow it from another trailer, and then things get a mess. It inevitably leads to delays and jobs getting rescheduled. I spoke with a few landscaping customers who do periodic inventory checks to try to make sure their
Hmm.
trailers are fully outfitted, and they describe a really tedious and time consuming process. So we
Okay.
designed this to help them keep track of that automatically.
Awesome. So let's get into it then. I would love to see if, let's say, I had a landscaping if I was a a landscaping business, and I wanted to use a solution. What would those day-to-day workflows look like? from like a customer's point of view?
Yeah, sure. So here's the equipment live map in the product. We will
Hmm.
be adding the equipment tracking to the primary live map probably later this year. So let's say that I am sending trailer number two here to do a job, and they're
Hmm.
mostly going to be doing a lawn job. But I spoke with the customer earlier, and it turns out they have a few branches down. So I want to make sure that there's a chainsaw on trailer number two, and there should be. So here on the live map, I can see where trailer number two is over here, and you can see the icon is letting me know that there are two pieces of equipment on this trailer. So over here, if I look at trailer number two, I can see that there's trimmer number two and riding mower number two. What I'm not seeing is that chainsaw that they're going to need. So what
So
I
what?
can do is I can
Yeah.
search for it. I can try searching for chainsaw number two, and I can find exactly where it is. It was dropped at a job site here. Um, and so that kind of information is exactly what teams need. Now I'm not going to waste that team's time sending them
Hmm.
to that job site without something that they need. And if this chainsaw is not in a convenient place, all the equipment
Hmm.
records are set up with categories. So I can also do a category search and find other
Hmm.
chainsaws and locate things really quickly. Make sure you have everything you need to get the job done.
Okay. What other workflows would a landscaping company utilize for this particular for our equipment tracking solution?
Sure. So something that we know they do is they want to have fully outfitted trailers, as we talked about. So you can assign equipment to a trailer. So, for example, if string trimmer number two is meant to always be in trailer number two, I can assign that to trailer number two. And then, of course, I can look in the system
Hmm.
here and make sure that everything's in the right place. And soon we'll be highlighting exceptions, like when something's not in the right place, we're going to be proactively notifying you about that so you can take action.
Awesome. Great question. Great, thanks. So then, okay, so we've talked about landscaping companies. How does this differ from a restoration company? Because I know that those workflows tend to be a little bit different.
Yeah, that's right. What's really interesting in contrasting that to field service businesses like landscaping, a lot of those field service businesses, they're using a lot of tools on equipment on job sites, and their goal is to not leave it behind. But businesses like restoration and other organizations that rent equipment to their customers, they are intentionally going to job sites and leaving equipment. In the case of restoration, they're often leaving a lot of equipment, and they don't necessarily know in advance what they're going to leave. If they're going to a flood zone where there are a lot of their customers
Mhm.
experiencing flooding, they're going to be dropping a lot of equipment at different places. And it can be very challenging to keep track of what gets left behind at each job site because sometimes they're making those decisions based on the conditions they find on the ground when they get there. They've tried other solutions like paper logs or RFID scanners,
Mhm.
but these kinds of solutions require that employee to take action. And the challenge is that, in an area where there's flooding or there have been fires, it can be pretty hectic, and they're trying to concentrate on what their customers need. And so it's really easy for them to overlook that task of keeping it in the log or making a manual task to keep track of things. So we designed this to automatically keep track of things for them. If this location here is someplace where equipment was dropped, I can click there and I can very easily see all the equipment that was dropped at this location. And now if I'm sending a team to this location to recover that equipment, it might be weeks later if this was a restoration business, the system will know exactly what was dropped off. In many cases, things may have moved. But as long as I know exactly what to pick up, what was dropped off, I
Mhm.
can keep looking and talking to the homeowner and recover everything that was left there.
Okay. So does this work? So you've shown me a web version. Does it also work on mobile? Because we're talking about people who are driving around everywhere they're going. So and you're showing me a web. Let's talk about mobile.
Yeah, absolutely. So all the features and functionality that are available on the web are also available on mobile because we anticipate that this is going to be really valuable in the field. The equipment module on the Azuga Fleet mobile app is available to managers, but it's also available to drivers. So if you want to put this functionality in the hands of your drivers so that they can locate things, so that they can be notified if they leave something behind on a job site, you can give that functionality to your drivers as well. Of course, it's all permission based, but all the functionality that we're looking at on the web is also available on mobile.
Okay, awesome. So so then how would I install all of this? So like I have a question.
Mhm.
Or sorry, let's say I get all these devices, I have all these beacons, I have like hundreds of beacons. What's my process look like for actually getting it from, this box of beacons to what you're seeing on the web?
Yeah, that's a really important point, and it's something that we put a lot of thought and effort into to make sure that the setup process is really easy. We've talked to customers who have used other systems where they found that getting everything set up and installed could be really time consuming and tedious. We didn't want our customers to have to do that. So we've tried to make this really easy. You'll see there's a QR code on the beacon, and it's used in setup. So I'm going to actually show you real quick here how quick and easy it
Awesome.
is to install a beacon. So let's say I want to
Okay.
put a beacon on this drill.
Okay.
I'm not going to actually install it, so I can show you. But when we ship you the beacons, we include screws. You can see there's a couple ears here for attaching. So we send you screws, but we also send some super strong double-sided 3M tape. So you can use one
Hmm.
or both of those options to install on equipment. There are other ways to install as well, like potentially using like an epoxy or something to more permanently install something if you're concerned about it. But yeah, the 3M tape, even by itself, is really super strong and holds on really well. Once I
Hmm.
install it, I just need to create an equipment record in the app. And it's so easy to do that I'm going to do it while we're talking here. I just need to
Okay.
give this piece of equipment a name, and I just have to give it a category so everything's organized in my system. In this case, I'm going to put it in with the other drills. Now, there are other
I
fields.
see.
We know a
Can you
lot of
show
our
me what you're
customers.
doing?
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just a
Sorry.
really simple interface for capturing some
Hmm.
information. I've given it a name and I selected drill for a category. Now, there are other
Okay.
fields here too, but you don't necessarily need them. When we talk to customers, what I heard a lot was that people aren't necessarily tracking this
Hmm.
type of equipment anywhere. And so we have fields for like the make and model, the date of purchase, the warranty expiration,
Hmm.
and maybe you don't have that information for your tools now, but going forward, you have a place to capture this kind of information. You can even track when it's put into service and then when it's retired from service, and that can inform your purchase and replacement decisions going forward.
Okay.
But to get started, all I really need to do is create this equipment record. And again, the bare minimum was just two simple fields. Now that I've created that, I'm going to just scan the beacon. And what you'll see is here I open the equipment record for that
Okay.
drill. This is the record I just created. And you can see the button there says Associate Beacon. And so
Okay.
let me see if I can do this backwards, but you can see it brings up a little scanner.
Oh
And
wow.
it never works quite right when I do it this way, but it's actually
Of
pretty
course.
reliable. Come on now. There it goes. Okay.
There it is.
So it just captured that and it's letting me know that this isn't
Hmm.
associated. So I can just tap associate beacon. And now this beacon is drill number one. If I found
Okay.
this drill in the field somewhere
Hmm.
and I wasn't sure how it got there, I can just scan that QR code again and it will tell me that this is drill number one. It will tell me which team it belongs to, and it can also tell me how it
Hmm.
got there by looking at equipment history. So if I view the history here on the equipment record, I can
Hmm.
see all the locations that have been captured. This one is brand new, so it hasn't really had
Hmm.
any history yet, but I can figure out how something got to a job site, and I can make sure to get it back to where it belongs.
Okay. So let me just recap. to install the beacons, let's say, I have my box of beacons in my phone.
Mhm.
I would go out to a truck and I would basically, or a trailer, if it's landscaping, is what you're saying. And I
Yep.
would just attach a beacon, scan it, enter in the record, and then move on to the next one. It's, put it on the
Right.
equipment, scan it. How long have you found that customers have taken to go through this process for
Yeah,
existing users?
we've seen customers set up 200 beacons in just a couple of days. It's really easy to do. You can do the entire
Hmm.
process from mobile, but you can also do the entire process from the web or mix it up. What I often recommend
Hmm.
is if you're setting up a lot of equipment, it's easier to do it in front of a keyboard. So come into here, create your equipment records. If you
Hmm.
already have information about your equipment, we can import it.
Hmm.
And create the equipment records, and then when you go out to the field to install the beacons, you just install, scan, and you're done. So that makes it really easy. Then going forward, if you buy something new and you want to get it into the system right away, again, you can pick up your phone and do the whole process right from there.
Awesome. All right. So you've shown us some of the base features that come with equipment tracking. What is exciting and new that's coming in 2025 as we continue the work on this product?
Yeah, well, we are just getting warmed up with equipment tracking, that
Mhm.
is for sure. And we have a lot of big plans for 2025, along with a lot of exciting things going on at Azuga in 2025. For equipment tracking, a couple of things that we're immediately focused on here in Q1 is reporting and alerts. The first report that we're working on is a status report with exceptions. So if you were a landscaping business, you could run that report, you could schedule it to run at the end of every day, and it would tell you where all of your equipment ended up at the end of the day. If something that's supposed to be in trailer number 2 is in trailer number 3, that would get flagged as an exception. If something that's supposed to be in trailer number 4 was left at a job site, that
Mm.
gets flagged as an exception. If I'm a restoration business or someone else who rents equipment, I can generate that same report and it will give me a summary of everywhere that equipment has been dropped off. But because that's something that's done on
Mm.
purpose, restoration business, it wouldn't be flagged as an exception. So very
All
useful
right.
there. Another thing that we're working towards is alerting drivers as soon as they leave, or alerting someone as soon as they leave a job site, having left something behind by accident.
Mm.
We have two statuses for equipment. When it's currently being detected by the asset tracker, which is how we detect beacons. The beacons are Bluetooth, and
Mhm.
they send out a "Here I am" signal, which gets detected by our wired asset tracker. This asset tracker is also a Bluetooth gateway, so it reports to the
Mm.
server and says trailer number 2 is here, and it also can report and say these beacons are nearby. So you're kind of leveraging the GPS connectivity of this device to report on
Mhm.
all the beacons that you have out in the field.
Excellent. All right. So we do have a lot of questions on the question field, so we will ask those. But I am going to ask one question, which I think was asked in here. I'll pull it up. Oh, it was when is it available and how much is it going to cost? I want to make sure that we start with that question, because I think that's like the most important one.
Yeah, not surprised to hear that question at all. So the Azuga equipment beacon itself is just $20, and that's a one-time fee. And so $20, and you own it outright.
Mhm.
Um, the asset tracker, we enable a different version of the firmware on the asset tracker so that it will detect your beacons. And there's a slight upcharge on the asset tracker to detect beacons.
Mhm.
But the beacons themselves, it's just a $20 one-time fee.
Okay. And if I don't already have an asset tracker, I would need to also get an asset tracker.
Yes, that's right. Today, all of the beacon detection happens through the asset tracker. And again, that's really
Mhm.
convenient if you have an equipment trailer that already has a tracker on it, or if you want to put a tracker on a van or a box truck. It's just going to automatically detect the movement of that equipment. Your employees don't
Mhm.
really need to think about it or do anything extra.
Excellent. All right. So, Toby, we have a lot of questions. So I'm going to start pulling them in and you're going
Mhm.
to answer. Hopefully we can get to all of them. I think we finished most of the content. We knew we'd have a lot of questions, so we really wanted to save some time to go through them. So first and foremost, I'm going to just pull them. How do I pull them in? Will the QR code work for, say, a homeowner to scan and then call the company that they found their equipment? That actually happened to me a couple weeks ago. I found a drill in my
Mhm.
my furnace room and said, and I was like, I don't know where this is from, and I know I had a what's it called? Um, a water heater installed, so I called
Yep.
the plumbing company. But that's a great idea.
It is a
Do we
great
have?
idea. That would not work. Everyone, thanks to COVID, everyone knows how to scan a QR code on a menu
Yeah.
now, and we usually use the camera app on our phones.
Hmm.
For this QR code, you need to use the scanner that's built into the Azuga Fleet mobile app. So that's the scanner that we were looking at before.
All right, awesome. Okay. Next question. Will the beacon work inside of a closed toolbox, inside of a van, or does it have to be out in the open for the GPS signal to pick it up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, any kind of a barrier like that will limit the signal to some extent, but Bluetooth does a much better job of dealing with obstacles and walls and turning around corners
Mhm.
than earlier technologies like RFID.
Okay.
So it should be pretty well as long as that box isn't too heavy duty. You could also put it on the outside of the toolbox. These are super waterproof and dust proof. They're IP67 rated. You can take them in the pool with you; they'll be fine. I've left mine overnight in the freezer, and it's still fine. So they're really resilient, and they're meant to be installed in places where they're going to get impacted by weather and dust and debris and things like that.
Awesome. All right, next question. This one's actually I think this one's a good one. In cases where there's a shared fleet and the customer is also using beacons to keep track of technicians and vehicles, can we track which technician may have dropped off the equipment in addition to which vehicle?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we do plan to get there eventually. Today in Azuga, if you attach a trailer to a vehicle, we know that the who's driving the vehicle, but the system doesn't actually keep track of that trailer being attached. So there's no relationship between the vehicle and the trailer. So
Hmm.
we definitely know when it's been dropped, and if you know which team is pulling that trailer, then you know. As we're
Hmm.
thinking about alerts, we do have a
Hmm.
concern about alerting a driver while they're driving. So we would expect to alert a team member, maybe back at the office, and then they could make a decision on that. But yeah,
Yeah. All right. This is another good one. Is there a way to generate an inventory spreadsheet database?
Yeah, so even just today, as I mentioned, we're planning on a report that would essentially do that, and you could schedule it to run every day, so you know exactly where your equipment ended up at the end of the day. But even right now, you can export right here, and it's going to basically give you an inventory of all the equipment in the system, and it's going to tell you the last place it was detected and when that occurred, so you know exactly where things are, where they were dropped off. The nice thing about the report that we're working on is it will organize it in a much more consumable way.
Mm,
But if you wanted to export that data right now to get an inventory, you could do that.
that's great. All right. So, question for a mechanical contractor mechanical contractors have job boxes on site
Mhm.
and that hold tools for that particular project. Would it work in this particular plan? How would you? So, this is a different use case, but I
Yep.
like where this is going.
Yeah, we've talked to a couple of customers who are interested in using it that way. So until recently, we did not have a wall power cable for this asset tracker because, of course,
Hmm.
your warehouse doesn't wander off on you. You don't need to put an asset tracker in your warehouse.
Hmm.
Uh, but if you're trying to track the movement of tools and equipment in a warehouse, you might. So we will soon be stocking wall power cables, and we have solutions for those in the interim. But yeah, you could either attach it to another power source or wall power. You could attach the
Hmm.
asset tracker to that toolbox, and then you'd be able to monitor the movement of equipment over the course of the day and be able to make sure that it ends up back in the toolbox at the end of the day.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So, this question. If so, like, if chainsaw number two is on another truck that's tracking as well, will the
Mhm.
system tell the user that the chainsaw is on another truck? So great question.
Yeah, so we've heard this question before. If two trucks are parked right next to each other, it's possible for the asset trackers to simultaneously detect the same beacon. And so, what the system would do today is it would say drill number one is with trailer number one and trailer number two, and
Hmm.
they're both all in the same location. And so, it's a true statement. They're all there in that same place. But over time, we have ideas for teasing out some more detail there. If it's simultaneously being detected by two different asset trackers, we do get signal strength information, and we also have historical information that we will be able to determine exactly which trailer it's in.
Awesome. Great. Um, all right, let's talk about geofences. How are these beacons working with geofences?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The asset tracker, of course, because it's constantly reporting, you can know when it's going in and out of a geofence. So if your equipment is in a trailer with the asset tracker, then you can certainly know that it's leaving a geofence. However, if someone just has a piece of equipment with a beacon on it and they take it out of the geofence and there isn't an asset tracker, then you're not necessarily, the beacon isn't going to know that it's leaving the geofence. So there are some limitations there in terms of geofences.
Awesome. Great.
What you could do,
Um,
though, is kind
mhm.
of like what we were talking about with the toolbox. If you have that toolbox in the center of that job site that the geofence is around, then you know when things have left the range and aren't being detected anymore.
All right. So this one's a toughie for I got a toughie for you, Toby. Will this work with our vehicle data lockers or just the asset tracker?
Yeah, that's a great question. We would love to extend the number of devices in the Azuga ecosystem that can detect beacons so that we have as many ways to detect beacons as possible. Um, it might, the Azuga data logger device does support Bluetooth, but I think there's a limitation on how many things it can detect at a time. So it's never
Mhm.
going to have the range or the capacity to keep track of everything that's in the back of a van. But eventually, it would be great if someone took something out of the trailer, threw it on the front
Mhm.
seat of their pickup truck, that we know where that thing went off to. If they maybe borrowed the surveying tool to go
Mhm.
do an estimate and now they don't know where it
Right.
is, it'd be great to report on that. The other thing that we'll be able to add, hopefully later this year, is leveraging your smartphones to also report on beacon locations. Smartphones have a limit that they can only detect around 7 Bluetooth devices at the same time. So again,
And
not going to keep track of an entire trailer, but it gives you more ability to keep track of how things are moving around.
so then how does that differ from the asset tracker? So how many beacons can the asset tracker track?
Yep, that's a really good question. So currently, the asset tracker can detect 50 beacons at a time. It can
Mhm.
be aware of an unlimited number of beacons. So if this tool is assigned to trailer one and it ends up in trailer number three, any trailer can detect any beacon, but currently there's a limit. It can only detect 50 beacons at a time. Soon we're going to be extending that limit to 100 beacons at a time by just freeing up some memory in this asset tracker. We're also looking at other devices that we can add to our
Mhm.
offerings. We're currently talking with our hardware vendors about what we're tentatively calling like a warehouse tracker. So like a wall powered tracker that has really good range and much higher
Mhm.
capacity to be able to keep track of a large amount of things in a warehouse.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see, we have about 10 more minutes left, and we have about five or six more questions, Toby. So just kind of giving
Okay,
you and if we don't get to all the questions, we will finish them at the very end, just so you guys know.
sure.
All right. So the dropped noticed, is this based on vibration or something the technician may have manually
Hmm.
mark as dropped? So um, that's the next question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the drop status simply means that it's no longer being detected by the asset tracker.
Hmm.
So it may have been literally dropped at a job site. The other way to interpret
Hmm.
it is it's dropped from detection. We're no longer detecting it, and we're assuming it's at the last known location. Eventually,
Hmm.
we've talked about adding a feature to do like more of an explicit drop, and that would be
Hmm.
useful, for example, if you wanted to drop equipment off on the second floor of an
Hmm.
apartment building. You could do an explicit drop using your phone where you say, hey, I'm dropping this here, and we might have additional fields that you could add to like provide some additional detail on exactly what that location is. So again, like the primary focus has been to make it automated so the employee doesn't have
Hmm.
to do anything, but we also see opportunities where it could be useful for that employee to add some additional color to what's being captured automatically.
So when you say dropped, you mean I dropped it off, not I dropped the equipment to like, okay, just
Yeah,
I want to make sure
exactly.
we're,
Right.
so we dropped. Got it. Next question. How long does it take for the asset tracker to find the beacon? For example, if I go to a job site to find a tool, will my mobile app update with the tool's location?
Yeah, great question. So the beacons ping every couple of minutes, and the ASA tracker is constantly listening to
Hmm.
detect those pings. The range is usually around 40 to 60 feet. It's possible, like the
Hmm.
advertised range for Bluetooth is like 100 feet, but it has to be pretty ideal conditions. We found like 40 to 60 is a more realistic expectation. But the asset tracker detects the ping and then it reports it to the server, and you should get an update on the mobile app within a few minutes,
Okay, sounds good.
depending on connectivity and things like that as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. All right. So the monthly subscription on the asset trackers covers the equipment beacons as well? Question mark. Is the I guess the question. Yeah, does it? I'm sorry, I should have rephrased it. Does
Yep.
the subscription cover the beacons as well?
Well, the way that it covers them is we have a standard fee that we charge monthly to use your asset tracker. And if you also want to use the asset tracker to detect beacons, there's just a small additional charge on top of that monthly
Mhm.
fee. So the monthly fee of maintaining your asset tracker is just a little bit more, but
Mhm.
you're now using it to track dozens and dozens of other pieces of equipment.
Excellent. Okay. Next question. All right. So if the beacon, if the beacon or asset tracker stops working, will it be replaced at no charge?
They should last really long time. The battery is designed to last 2 to 3 years, and they
Mhm.
do take an impact pretty well as well. You can replace the battery, although it can interfere with the waterproofing seal. I've done it just to see how the process works, and I think if you're careful about it, you could definitely maintain that seal. But yeah, unless it was a very unusual situation, we'll always consider swapping something out if you got a defective unit, of course. But yeah, it's a one-time fee for the beacon. So after that point, you own it. And,
Mhm.
if it is just damaged due to misuse or something like that,
Mhm.
we would automatically do a return. But of course, we're always here to listen to what's happening.
Excellent. Okay. So I think you've already answered this question, but I think this one was worded in a different way. So I'm going to re-ask it so we can, make sure that the different scenarios. If I have an equipment room, how would this work for tracking tools in and out?
Yeah, so that sort of gets to the
Mhm.
idea of a warehouse tracker. We are getting wall power cables for these asset trackers, so you can install them in warehouses. We have customers who are doing that today. Many times, though, a warehouse will have more than 50 or 100 units in it, and that's why we're
Mhm.
starting to evaluate potentially having a warehouse gateway that would have a higher capacity to be able to manage a large volume of equipment moving around in a warehouse or equipment facility.
Mhm.
Um, in some cases, we have customers who have installed multiple of these asset trackers in a warehouse, one on one end, one on the other, and that works
Yeah.
pretty well as well. You have one east warehouse, the other one west warehouse, and you have an idea of where it is within the warehouse.
All right. Well, then that actually leads to the next question, which is what is the range of the tracker and the beacon? Right. So that kind of
Yep.
fits in perfectly there.
Yeah, the range has everything to do with the Bluetooth range of the ping that the beacon sends out, and that is usually around 40 to 60 feet. In ideal conditions, it can go longer, but most of the time it's going to be more like 40 to 60 feet.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So then so let's say a company has theft recovery devices like Tile or AirTag.
Mhm.
How let's kind of what's the difference between how we're leveraging a beacon versus AirTags or Tiles?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So I think that this can be a theft deterrent, but we don't want to set the expectation that this is going to be a slam dunk solution for preventing theft, and it's not necessarily going to be effective at recovering lost equipment. An unfair advantage that Apple has with the AirTag is that they control all of our iPhones. And so if you lose your AirTag and my phone detects it, it
Hmm.
can let you know, and we don't have that advantage. But again, we're looking to extend the number of ways that we
Hmm.
can detect things and over time. But ultimately, what we're really focused on is operational efficiency, making sure that
Yep.
you can keep track of things more easily. You're not misplacing things. You're rescheduling fewer
Hmm.
jobs.
So, and I mean, also, if I, from a theft recovery perspective, would somebody just like tear it off if they saw
That's
it on
the other
there?
thing, right? I mean, even with
Yeah.
an AirTag, if you've lost your luggage, like happened to you on our business trip, the AirTag's great for that because no one has an incentive to go in there and rip it out. But when something's stolen, unfortunately, people
Yeah.
are kind of savvy to that now, and so it's pretty likely that the first thing they would do is rip that tracking
Hmm.
device off of it.
Okay. I have, let me see if there's any more in the queue. I have two more real questions that I think that I'll answer, and then we'll just sort of wrap up here, I think. How often does the beacon update? Can it do real time?
It if it it's a trade-off, right? So it pings
Hmm.
periodically, and we do some configuration on how often it pings. We're continuing to kind of experiment with where the sweet spot is, but the more it pings, the faster the battery will expire. So you could get close to real time by just pinging constantly, but your battery would not last very long. So we think
Right.
we found a pretty good sweet spot where it pings every couple of minutes. The asset trackers detect them. Things aren't really moving or changing much faster than that. And we've found that we get pretty good coverage in terms of keeping track
Hmm.
of the movement of equipment.
All right. Awesome. All right. Last but not least, how many sizes of beacons do you offer?
Right now, we just have the one beacon, but certainly over time, we can also consider adding other beacons as well. But yeah, right now it's just the one, and
Hmm.
I fumbled it. But yeah, again, it's really small and fits on a lot of different types of equipment, and it's easy to install and attach.
Excellent. Great. So, thank you guys, everyone, for joining. I think this was really fun. You had a lot of really great questions. I was really happy with a lot of them, and I love the ideas that you guys offered for the product as well. So, if you would like to learn more, you can actually click this link right here, and somebody from our team will reach out to you, and you can have a conversation with them. So, click this link here. We will also share this recording and that link as well with all of the attendees at the end. And we will have another product webinar at the end of February. So, stay tuned for the invite on that one. And thank you all for joining.
Thanks, everyone.